What y'all listening to?
Limelight Highlight Podcast.
Welcome back to the show, your positive podcast, safe space and great place for a positive outlook on life. If this is your first time here in the podcast, welcome. This podcast is about positivity, and it's packed full of positive stories and positive people doing positive things. So if you didn't get the gist, it's a lot of positive stuff going on. Last week on the positive, look at me, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Last week on the podcast, I talked about getting back to the roots of this podcast and delivering some good news. So before we dive too deep into this week's conversation, we'll go over our positive story for the week. People actually have been letting me know how much they enjoy the 20 to 30 minute shows with the positive news that I was doing. So I figured I can kill two birds with one stone, and the first part of the podcast will be about a good news story. And, you know, just for those who want to hear good news, you can listen to the beginning of the podcast, and these stories will be a little bit shorter than the 20 to 30 minute podcast, but still fun. And for those who enjoy that but want a little extra, just stick around for our interview after the good news story. But before we get into the show, I always like to start it off with an attention grabber that I call the unrelated fun fact. And if, like I said, if you're new here and you're wondering what that is, it's literally what it sounds like. It's a fun fact that's completely unrelated and has absolutely nothing to do with the podcast, the topic of the podcast, or anything that we're going to cover in the show. So I kind of do it because I love fun facts, and it's a good way to have, you know, some information that you can walk away with, and you could just throw it in your little conversational arsenal whenever you're in a group, you know, with a bunch of friends, or you just want to initiate a conversation with somebody. I think it's a good conversation starter, a little icebreaker, you know what I mean? So with that being said, this week's unrelated fun fact has to do with our taste buds. And if you didn't know, our sense of taste is 80% made up of our sense of smell. And because of that, if you were to blindfold yourself and plug your nose, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between these three foods. And here's where we go to our unrelated fun fact. An apple, a potato, and an onion all taste the same if you're to eat them with your nose plugged. It's kind of disgusting. But if you don't believe me, give it a try. Let me know if it's true. They do have, you know, all kind of have the same consistency, so I guess it makes sense. But I haven't tried this, nor do I plan on it, because I don't like onions like that. But if you happen to try it, let us know if it's true or not, and we can relay the message to the listeners. So there you have it. There's your unrelated fun fact that comes with a little neat experiment if you're into that kind of thing. But let's stop wasting time and get to our good news story. Now, growing up in an urban city can be tough. A lot of people call these areas the hood. You know, a lot of kids grow up to be gangbangers, drug dealers, or just kind of struggle their entire lives because regardless of what you think or how you feel, there's just not as many opportunities for these kids as there are for other kids who grow up in a better funded neighborhood. I was lucky enough to have both my parents consistently in my life, even when my dad was in jail, and my mom, she really made sure that I was there to see him and visit him every week, really know who my father was. It wasn't too long he was in there, but a lot of kids grow up in the hood and they don't have that privilege. They don't have the privilege of having two parents. Hell, some of them barely have one who can give them the attention that they need. Yeah, the crime rate, the surroundings, and the lack of funding for school, community centers, and just a plethora of other things. You start to understand why and how this vicious cycle continues to plague most of the poorest neighborhoods in the country. Statistically, 1 in 9 young adults between the ages of 16 and 24 are neither working nor attending school. These are what you call at-risk youth. They're underserved, they're underrepresented, and if you have a brain, it's not hard to see why. I talk about this subject in particular a lot because people think it's a simple problem to solve. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get to work and you can be successful is something that people love to say when it comes to giving shit advice to kids who need help. without guidance, education, or even just simple knowledge on where to go get that help, many of these kids will continue to grow to be struggling adults, and that vicious cycle just continues. Now, here at Limelight Highlight, as I said many times before, we like to highlight all the positive in the world that people are doing, but we can't lose sight of the problems that are plaguing the world as we know it. Instead of just giving you feel-good stories of how a dog jumped in a pool to save a struggling, drowning squirrel, as adorable and as much of the feel-good as it might be, I don't really consider that newsworthy. I want to highlight a problem and bring people who are working diligently to combat and come up with solutions to said problem. We did that with the beginning of the story, the classic song "Greatest Love of All" by Whitney Houston has a very famous lyric, and the lyric goes, "I believe that children are our future. Teach them well, and let them lead the way." Not only is it a catchy tune, but it's a fact. A fact that seems to get overlooked and ignored when it comes to the education system in our cities and our poor neighborhoods, and other areas as well. But thankfully, there are people and organizations out there that have genuinely good people trying to help and tackle these problems, helping these at-risk youth. This week's good news story is about an organization coming out of New York City called Sweet Generation Rise. Their mission is to train and hire young people from marginalized communities, ages 16 to 24, hint, hint. They work with both high school students and disconnected out-of-school youth that have limited access to employment opportunities and training. RISE serves economically distressed communities. Their target communities encompass both under-resourced or underperforming high schools and high-need neighborhoods exhibiting poverty and resource deprivation. By providing meaningful training in job readiness, entrepreneurship, and social emotional development, they support their participants in leading healthy, positive lives, reduce the risk of negative life outcomes, and have tremendous positive economic impact on under-resourced New York City communities. They even have a curriculum that focuses on entrepreneurship, professionalism, and business planning. They have a group of classes and even have an outline of workshops that they provide during their 8-week course. All this information can be found at their website at sweetgeneration.org. I'll be sure to list it in the show notes for you guys, but every major and minor city should definitely have programs like this, multiple programs like these set up. This is how you solve a problem. You educate and arm the youth with profitable skills and understanding on how to make those skills work for you. I truly believe that if we have more resources to provide to these communities, then we'd solve a lot more problems than just poverty, crime, stable homes, breaking those, that old saying, breaking generational curses of being in poverty. A lot. Not only are they helping people gain the skills needed to succeed, but they apparently have a great cafe menu. They cater, they make custom cakes, so they're employing these people as well. This organization has truly piqued my interest, and I thought it was something that I could share with you guys. Some good information, since New York is the biggest city in America with some of the densest and most populated communities. I feel like this information really needs to be shared. I picked this organization as the main story for this week because they're providing kids and young adults the tools and opportunities to change their lives for the better. They're running a business, they're taking care of people, and their mission is just extremely noble and something that I haven't really heard from other organizations that are doing. Exclusively, with these neighborhoods. A lot of those other programs that are, more power to them and big props to them. They're helping as well. But programs like this is just, they're focusing on marginalized communities, I couldn't be more happy to share. So this wasn't really a good news story. It's more of an informational about a very positive organization. But regardless, hopefully this story will inspire someone to take the same business model and apply it to their neighborhood. We need more of these things around to help these communities. There's nothing wrong with making money and helping other people make money and providing a powerful and useful resource for those who need it the most. As long as you do it with the best of intentions, that's what I say. But that's it for this week's story. If that didn't motivate you, then stay tuned, because this week's guest certainly will. Just to piggyback on today's story, my guest this week is an entrepreneur himself. He has a clothing line. He helps at-risk youth all the time through multiple organizations that he set up and worked with. And he also sets up events that he and his team plan and put together, and is an all-around inspirational human being. We touch on some events in his life that led him down the path that he's taken today and is really helping make a positive impact on his community. So without further ado, help me welcome Buddah to the show. Hope you enjoy. I'm here with Buddah. Do you go by any other name or just?
Nah, just Buddah.
Just
I've been
Buddah.
going by that since I was a kid. So
Why Buddah?
My parents gave me that name when I was a baby. Probably, I think, because I resembled the Buddha. I was fat, got chinky eyes. That's most likely why. So
Tommy got me in contact with you. He calls you the mayor of Frankfurt. And he tells me a lot about the work that you guys are doing in Frankfurt. Well, just give us a little background about how you got involved and why Frankfurt, and all the good details.
Gotcha. I'm gonna try to shorten the story up because it's a long story. But Frankfurt, first and foremost, I'm from Frankfurt. I grew up in Frankfurt, and just going through like life experience down there, and going through different obstacles. You just go through so many stuff that it just prepare you to either stay on that same path or do something different. And I had to, learn my lessons by, getting locked up a lot, or just witnessing losing friends right next to me. And just, you see a lot of crazy things, and you build that up. So it was either I'm going to keep sticking to this or finally learn my lesson. So.
And how old are you?
I'm 30 now.
30. You just turned 30?
I'm 31, actually. I just turned
31?
31, yeah,
Okay.
a couple months ago, yeah.
And I remember, I grew up in North Philly, and I remember my mom moved us to like right around the corner from the L, like Frankfurt Terminal.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember us moving there, and the neighborhood was actually a lot nicer at that time, and then it kind of progressively got worse as we went down the line. But what were some of the things you're talking about as far as getting locked up, if you don't mind sharing?
So just like being a product of the environment, you either look up to a lot of, people selling drugs or people robbing each other, doing anything for the fast money. And when you're young, it's not like a lot of older people you look up to, because they mostly probably locked up or dead. So you just fall into the same cycle because nobody really telling you, like, listen, you can get this job, or you could do this, or, keep doing this in school. So it was just like, hanging around the wrong people. I'm not even gonna say the wrong people, just hanging around friends. We all getting into the same stuff, and we just ain't had no guidance. So just witnessing, like, starting out, with fights, free for alls, going to parties, stuff like that, just young, doing the most. So
what got you from being in the streets doing all that, kind of the shit we all do when we was kids,
right, to
your position now? And speak a little bit about what exactly you do for Frankfurt.
Okay, so right now I'm kind of like an entrepreneur. I do a little bit of everything. I really don't got no title. Some people say like I'm like a community activist. So just putting together events with the kids, getting the kids involved. And what made me start this was, it was just about Frankfurt itself. Like, I saw a lot of places in Philadelphia, we don't got like no star football player, no star basketball player, nobody to really come back and give back that kids can look up to. So I wanted to start a program that can be like the Limelight of Frankfurt, that can bring other people from all over to come down just to shed some light on Frankfurt, because we ain't had that. Like I said, all we had was people just getting into trouble that we looked up to. So I wanted this to bring something new, something cool, and just so that kids can relate to, the things that we get into is the same thing that's going on. So just trying to show them a better path. But I was going back up to my high school that I played football for up Frankfurt, and I wanted to just volunteer, help coach out with the kids. And my first couple of days up there, just like when the generation just started to shift, like with the music, with just how, social media, validation, like everything